Right now, pay attention. Straighten your lines. Everybody, make sure you are standing according to your forms. Pay attention. Will you keep quiet? Chair says one. All right, we have visitors here this morning. Will you pay attention? Chair says one. I don't want to catch one person. You want to know why they are here? Yes. They are the National Commission for Democracy. They are here to talk to you. And you know what? Girls that are wise, they listen because they want to learn. So I want to believe that all of you are wise girls. So listen to what they have to say to us this morning, and you have something to learn. Let's clap as we welcome them.
Honor. Laboramos. You're not familiar with that? Okay. Good morning, school.
Good morning, sir.
We've just been introduced as people coming from the National Commission for Democracy. I am the Head of Communications and Public Relations. My name is Reverend Jibril Akagbo. And I have with me the Manager for Media and Communications is Ibrahim Siraju. The man with the camera is Mr. Lamin Kagbo. And we also have Mr. Umar Conte as part of the team. In 1994, the National Commission for Democracy was established. But in 1996, it was upgraded to a statutory body. In other words, an act of parliament was passed for the work that the commission will do. And since then, it has been working to foster what we call constitutional democracy through awareness raising in the context of civic consciousness, the promotion and consolidation of democratic governance. Today, we are here to talk on the topic enhancing the right civic culture. What is the topic for today's talk?
Enhancing the right civic culture.
Again?
Enhancing the right civic culture.
Okay? Whatever that means, shortly we're going to talk about that. But this is what I want to do. These are the questions I want to answer, even as we examine the topic, enhancing the right civic culture in Sierra Leone. Number one, we want to find out what is civic culture. Number two, we want to talk about the different kinds or categories of civic culture. Number three, we want to talk about the various components of this civic culture. Number four, we want to consider how we can enhance the right civic culture in our country. And we might also answer the question, if we have time, do we as a nation have the right civic culture? And we might conclude, that is if time permits, with the question, what are the benefits of the right civic culture? These are the questions we want to answer this morning as we talk to you on enhancing what we call the right civic culture. Let's start with the first question that I mentioned. What is civic culture? Just a quick reference to books written by some authors, especially Gabriel Almond and Sidney Vaber. They said in their book Civic Culture that when we talk about civic culture, we are concerned with what? Acceptance of the authority of the state and belief in participation in what we call civic duties. So two things. Number one, the authority of the state. Number two, civic duties. Now, when we look at the concept again, civic culture, culture itself talks about a way of life, our norms, our beliefs, the standards of practice. And when we look at the word civic, it refers to us within the context of the state as citizens. So therefore, when we talk about civic culture, we are actually talking about the lifestyle of the citizen in the context of the state. Are we citizens in Sierra Leone?
Yes.
Some people are not convinced about that. Convince yourself, are you a citizen in Sierra Leone?
Yes, sir.
So therefore, when we talk about civic culture, we are talking about all of us, the kind of lifestyle, the way we should live our lives, both in private and in public, so that at the end of the day, everything will be fine in terms of the governance of the state and in terms of what we can do as responsible citizens. Now, somebody has said, in referring to civic culture, that we are looking at the relationship that should exist between those that are the governors, our leaders. Do we have leaders in the land?
Yes, sir.
The president, right?
Yes, sir.
Members of parliament.
Yes,
those who work in the public service. Even in the context of the school, the head of the school is, what is the name of the head of the school? What is her title? The principal of the school. The principal, right? Madam Jambai. And you have other people that are working with her. And you are the citizens in this state, the school children. So also generally, when we talk about civic culture, we are looking at the lifestyle of us as citizens within the context of the state. Now, having said that about civic culture, we must look at different categories. Those who have studied the subject, they've taken time to put them into 3 broad categories. And those broad categories, they exemplify our role as citizens within the context of the state. Category number 1, in terms of civic culture, don't allow the world to bother you. It might sound new to some of us, but as we go along, we'll find out about it. Some of us might even note it. The first category is what we call the parochial civic culture. What's the first category?
Parochial civic culture.
That is category number 1. Category number 2, we are talking about the subject civic culture. What is the second category?
The subject civic culture.
And the third category is what we call the participant civic culture. What's the third category?
The participant civic culture.
Okay, so now let's take time to understand what they are. Even as we have attempted to define civic culture, we say what? It is characterized by an acceptance of the authority of the state and our belief in civic duties. Now, we want to take those 2 elements and categorize us as citizens within the context of the state. For the first category, those citizens who come under what we call the parochial civic culture, these citizens, they understand little or nothing about the governance of the state. They are not interested. For some of them, probably it's because they don't know. And some, it is just out of apathy. They don't care. So those that people who behave like that in the States, and even in the context of the school, we have people like that. They just come to school. They're not interested in anything. Yeah. Whatever the school is doing, it's not their business. They come to, they sit in class, and they spend time and they go back home. Not benefiting anything. That's the same thing for some people in the context of the state. So we say they belong to what? The parochial civic culture. But then you have a second category of citizens within the context of the state. We say they belong to what we call the subject civic culture. They have a certain level of understanding, but they have this notion that whatever it is that they know, or whatever it is that they can do, cannot influence any process in the state. So they see themselves as subjects of the government, and that they cannot ask government any question. They cannot ask those in authority any question. So we say that what? They belong to the second category that we call the subject civic culture. But then we have the third category of citizens, and they belong to what we call the participant civic culture. For this category of people, they know about the workings of the state, and they are also contributing to the processes so that the state can be successful. And it is those citizens that will ensure that when it is time for election, they go and vote. When it is time to pay their tax, they do it without any murmuring or grumbling. They don't fight. They don't create any problems. But they ensure that the right thing is done within the context of the state. So, girls of the Methodist Girls High School, we must understand that as citizens in this country, if we are to be fully involved, we must be interested in the third civic culture, which is what? The participant civic culture. The first and the second, even though they are relevant for our information, we must work to ensure that we belong to that third category, where we are fully involved in the operations of what happens in our community and the rest of the state. Are we together?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me try to round up. If we are to become what we call good citizens, we must aspire towards the third category, which is the category that talks about what? The participant civic culture. And remember, we said that there are two key elements: the authority of the state, and that is exemplified by what we call legitimacy in all that is done in the state, the institutions of the state, and the processes in terms of the proper functioning of the state. So, we must have in that arrangement what we call free and fair elections. We must uphold the rule of law. We must recognize and promote the rights and freedoms of the citizens. We must ensure that there is no discrimination across the board. And for us as citizens, in the context of the state, we must rise against what? Tribal, ethnic, and regional sentiments. But this is what I want to leave you with, and which is a problem in our country today, and which relates to you. As good citizens, within the context of what we call the participant civic culture, you and I must ensure we maintain the right work ethics. You are in school, and you are expected to come to school and learn. And you're not expected to be involved in malpractices. You're not expected to cheat in exams. You're not expected to be involved in anything that is negative. So therefore, we must work very hard if we are to become good citizens, if we are to contribute to the development of Sierra Leone. First of all, if we are to contribute to the development of where we find ourselves. And I end by saying this to you: I am a good citizen. Are you a good citizen?
Yes.
Honor
Before honors.
God bless you.
God bless you.
These are civic education materials from the National Commission for Democracy. But of course, it's not enough to give everybody. So what we want to do is to present this to the school for use in the library. So if you are interested in learning more about some of what we've just said, you can always go to the library. And once in a while, we'll be coming around to continue with this kind of engagement. On behalf of the Executive Chairman of the National Commission for Democracy, I want to present these civic education materials to Mrs. Palmer on behalf of the principal of the Methodist Girls High School. You see, I almost made a mistake. I said Methodist Boys High School. That's because that's the school that I attended. So when I say Laboramus, honor, thank you, God bless you.
Alright, we want to say a very big thank you to the Commission, Democracy Commission. We have learned a lot, eh? If you want to know more, I am going to show Madam, and Madam is going to send them to the library. When you go there, you'll have the opportunity to read and to know more. But once in a while, they will be coming to talk to us, okay? Let's clap as we say thank you to them.